right, perfect. Thank you everyone for coming in today and for joining MLB's Supplier Diversity Summit. So my name is Justin Reyes. I am the Vice President of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at Major League Baseball. And our Supplier Diversity Program, also known as our Diverse Business Partners, seeks to promote efficiency and profitability for MLB and our clubs, while extending baseball's ability to contribute to the economic growth, strength, and well-being of diverse communities. Since formation of the program and initial implementation stages of the DBP program in 1998, MLB has invested over $2 billion with diverse-owned businesses, making DBP an industry-leading program. It's also, since its beginning, not just to include minority and women-owned businesses, but also veteran, LGBTQ, disability, and small businesses as well. So we're thrilled once again to host Angelina Darrisaw, founder and CEO of the C-Suite Coach, a firm that offers expertly designed professional development and coaching programs for working professionals and small business leaders. C-Suite Coach has staffed coaches and provided training programs for Google, Major League Baseball, NYU's Veteran Lab Accelerator, Zendex, Oscar Help, Europe, Omnicom, and so many others. C-Suite Coach, an NMSDC and NGLCC certified business. Let's give that up for Angelina, who just recently got your certification, so congratulations on that. We're thrilled for you. Is a preferred supplier for Google, with contract ranging from supplier diversity consulting and content design for racial equity programs. C-Suite Coach also services Black and Latinx small businesses by supporting Google's efforts to bridge the digital divide through tactical digital skills training. As part of this work, the C-Suite Coach staff manages 20 coaches who have offered free coaching and resources to over 80,000 US Black and Latinx small businesses through more than 1,000 programs across the US since 2018. Angelina has been busy. These efforts helped Angelina earn a Forbes Next 1000 and Black Enterprise 40 Under 40 Award for businesses in 2021, the Digital Diversity Network Innovation and Inclusion for Social Entrepreneurship in 2019, the Innovators and Disruptors Diversity and Inclusion Award presented by New York On Tech and NBC Universal in the Year Up Urban Empowerment Award in 2018, and finally the Walker's Legacy Power 25 Award in 2017. We're really proud to bring a leading expert to provide this workshop for you today. I couldn't be more thrilled to partner with the C-Suite Coach again. If you were with us in February, Angelina led a number of impactful sessions for us during Black History Month for over 200 Black-owned businesses. So we hope that you'll spend your time today learning as much as you can, absorbing as much as you can from someone who I admire and respect in this space a whole lot. We'll hope that you'll join us for the session after this, I think 3 o'clock Eastern time, and then join us tomorrow for a panel discussion, and Angelina's dropping the link in the chat with some of our procurement leaders from around the clubs. You'll have an opportunity to hear from them directly, ask them questions, talk through what their visions, what their plans are for next year, leading into next season. It's 9 a.m. Eastern time. I wish we could have been in person during winter meetings in Orlando, but we've gone virtual this year, and we're excited to be able to offer this program even more broadly than we would if we were in person. So with that, I thank you for your time. I hope to see you this afternoon. I hope to see you tomorrow morning, and I hand it over to you, Angelina.
Thank you so much, Justin. It's so great to hear from you, and really just admire all of the work that you all are doing to support small businesses, particularly from diverse backgrounds. So thank you so much. Now, we have a lot to talk about, and I want to hear from all of you and hear why you all are here and what you came for. So I'm going to kick it over to, there we go, Jackie on my team is here. Shout out to Jackie for sharing slides, as my Wi-Fi is a little shaky today. But I want to say hi, everyone, and we can just skip to the next slide. Justin shared more than enough about me. It's always so fun to hear your bio read, but here's how you can reach out if ever interested. Next slide, please. A snapshot of who we served. Next slide, please. and a snapshot of our services. So if you're looking for coaching for any of the programs that you lead or operational support for programs, please do reach out to us. Now, next slide, please. If you all could just take a second and drop in the chat who you are and why you're here, your business name. I already saw that Sammy did that. So I would love to know who you are, why you're here. We appreciate you joining. And also, what are you hoping to get out of today's session? Do you have a product-based business or do you have a service-based business? Drop that in the chat as well. So I'll give everyone just a second. And this is really good networking. If you come back for the session at 3, we're going to talk about some skills for virtual networking. So you want to make sure you're already taking advantage of some of these networking best practices by sharing who you are, what your products are, and what your services are. So I'll give just a minute for everyone to do that. And then we can, as you're doing that, I'll go to the next slide so we can discuss the agenda that we have for today. All right. So this is probably the hottest topic that we have seen and heard about in the news right now. What is going on in the supply chain? Will your kids, your family members, those who you want to give gifts to this holiday season get their gifts on time? But more importantly, how does it affect your small business? I'm seeing some of you drop in the chat who you are and what you do. A couple of you work on signage and displays. We have Teresa Walker who works on signage and displays. Anyone else have product-based businesses? Please do let us know in the chat. So particularly those of you who want to be suppliers, if you're not already for organizations like Major League Baseball, some of these supply chain issues can be particularly scary. So we want to just kind of talk through what is the state right now? What is the ecosystem? What's happening? And how does it impact small businesses? Then, as we called out, we want to talk about some of the do's and don'ts. How do we get around this? Are there solutions? Can we be disruptive in this space? What can we do? And how do we best communicate with clients? So we'll have a teaser here and talk more about relationship building when you come back at 3 p.m. I'm going to just take a quick look at the chat and call out who some of you are and what you do, and then we'll move on and talk about what is this? Is there a supply chain crisis? Is that what's really happening right now? So we have folks joining from all over with a couple product-based businesses. I see you, Katie. A couple of folks who are already working with MLB. We have guest services for stadium ops, and they're supplying uniforms. So that's George and Lisa. We have folks who are with Minority Supplier Development Council, and they're working with minority-owned firms as well. So you want to reach out to them. A lot of service-based firms and folks who are working on branding, advertising, and reality solutions. So some folks you might be able to network with as well. So please make sure you take a look through the chat and see who's here. But this is a hot topic. Even if you have a service-based business, chances are you're working with different vendors that you may need to fulfill on certain things. I'll give an example. As holiday season comes up, one of the things we do for relationship building with both employees and clients is send holiday gifts. You want to send swag boxes. You want to let people know you appreciated their business, and that's hard to do when there are shipping constraints. So this is something that's affecting all of our lives as we think about how best to run our businesses. So next slide, please. So are we actually in a supply chain crisis right now? Because if you've been following the news lately, there's a lot of mixed messages, a positive outlook being shared with us often by government, but a lot of businesses in distress as we think about what does the state look like right now. So I want to kind of break down how this all started. And this is important, as we'll talk about later, just making sure as you're communicating with your clients, you want to make sure that they're informed as well about everything that is going on in this space right now. So it all began with the great disruptor of all of our lives, COVID-19, the pandemic. And essentially what happened as we were figuring out how to react to the pandemic and see what would we all be at home and for the near term and for how long and how that would change all of our lives, it overall led to a very dramatic economic slowdown. And that slowdown essentially affected production as more people went home and there were less people going into work to try to stop the spread of the virus. So that slowdown ultimately led to greater tensions. There was a lot of confusion and different ideas about would there be an overall decrease in demand for products, while the word of 2020, does anyone know the word of 2020? Drop it in the chat if you do. Unprecedented demand in other areas, right? Okay, I'm seeing, yep, pivot was one. Yes, we are in a supply chain crisis. I'm seeing some of you say, yeah, and there was just this unprecedented demand in other sectors. What we saw was more need for PPE, and then there were other home supplies that we didn't expect an increase in demand for. So for example, as less people were going into the office and wanting to work from home, there was a need for more office furniture for your home. We also saw things as people were cooking from home more, going to the grocery store. There was that shortage of flour. I remember that as well. So some of the home supplies became more in demand. People wanted more items for their kitchen, more items for their workspaces, for a better home lifestyle in general. And so we saw more demand in people shopping from home. So this had a huge impact. You know, the expectation was as people weren't working, there would be less shopping. But what actually happened was there was this great dramatic increase in online shipping. And then the good old stimmy happened, where folks got a stimulus to really stimulate the economy, and it led to more online shopping. So even more people were buying in unprecedented ways than expected, right? So this all contributed to the rise of China as a very important player in the space. In 2020, they produced half of all medical masks. And so what happened was essentially more countries were getting shipments from China that they had previously no trade routes with, and they weren't previously shipping with them. So the containers that were filled with PPE that were going to these different countries were not being shipped back. So China saw a lot of decrease in the shipping containers that they needed to ship other goods as they were shipping so much PPE during 2020. So then what happens now is there's this growing demand for goods. It leads to these really long wait times at ports. And again, more labor shortage. We're seeing more and more online shipping. And then that has an impact overall as we're seeing less labor. If we go to the next slide, please. Here's a quick graphic that was in the New York Times just yesterday. And I'll drop the article in the chat towards the end. A perfect visualization of what's happening right now. And to Katie's point, what's driving, I miss my stimmy. Yes, don't we all? What's driving some of the quote unquote crisis that we're seeing right now. So there's a lot of strain on supply chains. There's a lot of different shortages across the board when it comes to the containers that are needed to ship things, actual goods that are in high demand right now. You might have heard of the chip shortage that's happening. And then of course, people to actually do things that are critical to this ecosystem, like drive trucks. There's a shortage in truck drivers right now, right? So all of this compiles on each other and creates this really hard, tough ecosystem for small businesses. Now there are, okay, I'm seeing a couple, oh great, Jackie already dropped it in the chat. You can check out the interactive map. So a great overview of where we are now. So what are the shortages that we keep hearing about? Next slide, please. So we're hearing about a couple shortages overall on a regular basis. The first that we're hearing about so much is labor. So what happened, have you all heard of the term we're hearing about trending right now? It's like every couple months there's this new trending term, and the one right now is the Great Resignation. So a record 4.3 million Americans quit their jobs in August, and that's the most since the Department of Labor started tracking this data in 2000, right? So there are a lot of challenges in getting labor right now. And maybe this is something that's even impacting your own business as you think about that. I'm seeing some of you share more in the chat. Okay. Yeah. So that's one issue. The other issue is containers. So not only are there less of them, the decrease in the amount of containers is driving up the prices, which makes it very costly. So this is something else we have to think about when we think about the impact of small businesses. Before the pandemic, sending a container from Shanghai to Los Angeles was a $2,000 journey, right? But now, starting in early 2021, that same route was as much as $25,000. So we're seeing a large increase in costs, right? You have to pay your labor more. You have to pay more for if you are shipping goods to get containers. And then the other piece of it is product prices are going up drastically. So between May 2020 and May 2021, commodities prices rose by 19%, which is the largest year-over-year increase since 1974. So across the board, we're seeing increases in everything that's needed to drive a business, particularly if you're a product-based business. I don't know about you, but this is all information that can be stressful to a small business owner. So what's happening right now is there's this tension between, do we hoard things or do we potentially run out of supplies? Are we comfortable with being out of stock, right? And so there's just this buildup. There's this unpredictability in sales. People don't want to miss the moment when there are a lot of people shopping from home. And we can go to the next slide, please. People don't want to miss the moment. We're shopping from home. Business owners don't want to lose the financial opportunity that comes with so many more people doing online shipping. And so there's this fear of running out of stock. We're seeing some small business owners buy almost double of what they would have before. And again, there's extra costs for that, for the storage for their businesses, and a lot of strain on these small business owners. Now, some larger companies are stepping in, and they are helping small businesses manage demand where they can. But once purchases are made, so even if you are able to capitalize on more people shopping online, another challenge that businesses are facing is shipping delays, right? So will my customer get things on time? And you'll see a lot of small business owners talk about the frustration that they're receiving from their customers who've made purchases. Especially in 2020, we saw an increase in a lot of purchases for minority-owned businesses. There was a stat that Google had dropped about, for instance, Black-owned businesses being an increase of over 100% year to year in searches for Black-owned businesses. So a lot of small and a lot of minority-owned businesses got many purchases coming their way as folks sought to support them, to keep them in business and keep their businesses from closing. But then when it came to products actually being shipped, because there was so much shipping happening, there were these great delays, and it led to a lot of frustrated customers being unhappy that, hey, I've made my purchase with your business, I've ordered with you, and now I can't even get my item. So there's that tension. Business owners are up against looking at wanting to have the right amount of inventory, wanting to have enough, and sometimes they're hoarding, which also leads to more of these shortages. They're buying more products than they typically would have, and at the same time can't fulfill in the way they would like to customers' demands, not because they don't even have the inventory, but more so because of these other shipping delays. So all of these things are leading to big challenges for small businesses. Now, as I mentioned, next slide, please. The government has a really positive outlook on this. So, there's a positive turn. Just the other day, they're suggesting you may not get everything you want, but we're going back into this very strong shape. We're going to have more resources for you all very soon. And there's a lot of hope in this, right? Next slide, please. Kamala has been out saying the same thing. We're taking action to move things further along with some of our larger ports. There's hoping that this will reduce some of the supply chain congestion and lower costs. But it's, a journey that, as many analysts are predicting, is not going to have an immediate fix. Some people are saying that this isn't going to be something that has a change in a couple months. It may take years to correct some of these long-term issues that we saw that just started in 2020 as a result of COVID. So a lot of need for long-term fixes in this area. Now, on the flip, we also have larger businesses who do seem more positive. And just recently, President Biden held this big roundtable with all CEOs of major companies. And there's a lot of positivity that's being shared about what it looks like in this space. Next slide, please. So for example, the CEO of Walmart weighs in and he says, you know, because of everything you're doing, everything that the government is doing, and also teams work to reroute to other ports. They're working on better lead times and having more creative solutions. We've seen an increase in throughput over the last 4 weeks to 26% nationally to getting containers through ports. So some of the larger companies are seeing some of these benefits. Next slide, please. And then you have Amazon, who is like totally winning in all this because they made a lot of early bets on buying private vessels, on having some of the, you know, a lot of you, anyone know about Amazon's shipping business and how that works? They're completely own all of their shipping locally and domestically. And they've also worked on that same sort of model from a global level. So they have private vessels for shipping cargo. And even Amazon saw a 14% rise in out-of-stock items and an average price increase of 25% since January of 2021. So Amazon, with all of its private vessels, its private shipping, is still having challenges. Amazon then they're reacting to this. They started to make their own 53-foot cargo containers in China so that they can also have more access to containers, as there is a shortage for containers. And one thing that stood out is even for some of the highest margin goods, Amazon is trying to avoid ports altogether. They're trying to make sure that they can get smaller amounts of cargo directly from China to the US much faster using their vessels and planes. So now this is great for Amazon, it's great for Walmart, but where do small businesses, where do we stand in all this? So I'd love for some of you who mentioned you have a product-based business, if you could just drop in the chat, how has your business been affected by some of these things? I'll give you just a second. How are you competing? How do we compete with the likes of Amazon, Walmart? Anyone seen any creative solutions or have any solutions? Oh, I love this, Katie. Katie suggests 5 Ps. Proper planning prevents poor performance. That's definitely the big shortcut that I'm going to recommend later. That proper planning really comes from what? Data. It really comes from collecting the right data to best understand what your market needs. Kiara said she's seen a food cost increase and shortage. Would love to know what kind of business you have, Kiara. Anyone else? How else has your business been affected? And if you've done something or seen something that's been helpful, what has it been? Setting expectations with clients, having a plan B from start, avoiding risk. Clients will pay more for less risk. Okay. And Kira, who has seen the food cost increases in the catering and mobile vending business, finding underserved sales channels is i.e. diversity goals. Okay, awesome. Okay, I'll give you all moments. Please do continue to share in the chat, as we all are small businesses trying to win together. Would love to hear from you. So, you know, there's a lot of challenges here. We're seeing just so much soaring right now in terms of demand. As I mentioned, for example, living room furniture has soared. So, you know, 1,572%. There's been these drastic jumps for all sorts of things, dining tables, games to play at home, you know, just across the board, we're seeing this demand. And we're also seeing people having to raise their prices, which also is hard if you are a small business and part of how you grow your business is through competitive pricing for your community or for those who you do business with. But wholesale costs are rising and small businesses have to react to that as well. So one other stat that really stood out to me is a recent study by Adobe showed that out-of-stock messages in October more than quadrupled compared with October 2019. This year, from 2 years ago, we're seeing a quadruple in things being out of stock. The good news for us is that there's a lot of high demand, but we do have to make sure that we're managing that with having the products in stock and having the proper communication with customers as they really are craving all of the items that we have. So let's talk just about, we've talked about all of the problems, and I think some of you highlighted, okay, I'm seeing a couple more in the chat. How you all are managing is, one of you saying we're raising prices. That's from Douglas. Demon Crump says we're thriving because we invested heavily in inventory starting in 2019. So you made a good bet there, and we've never been back ordered or had customer delays. They've done 10 million in revenue in the last 29 months with the $6 product. Oh my goodness, you have to drop your product in the chat, and I want to just applaud you because that's really challenging to do, especially in this landscape. And Katie's sharing quite a bit as well. She's learned from leaning into our core competencies and found ways to serve new demands. So she shipped tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of swag boxes over the last 18 months and continues to do so. You as well, Katie, definitely would love for you to drop your business in the chat. So we talked a lot about the landscape, and many of you are sharing, we're seeing some great wins here, but it is still tough for a lot of small businesses. And, maybe Katie and Devin can share more about some of their wins as well. But I also want to share some of the thoughts that experts are saying about what are the do's and don'ts in this space with everything that's happening. And, definitely some consistency with your experiences with what analysts are saying as well. So next slide, please. Let's talk about some of the do's. So Harvard Business Review has a lot of thoughts here about how to manage some of this great disruption that we're seeing, right? So part of that is first, really knowing your business. I think Katie hit on that best when she said poor planning. What was it? The quote, poor planning proper planning prevents poor performance. So really that begins with deepening your knowledge of your business operations. And that's really critical to uncovering and addressing early some of those risks. That can also help with some of the forecasting as you are looking to really decide what is the right amount of inventory to have. There's a lot of, depending on what your product is, but a lot of products we have now really have these difficult components or these very nice materials that require special technology to make. So a lot of folks might say to small businesses, well, why can't you just get that product made in America or get it from America? But the reality is it's very difficult, even for single firms, to possess all of the capabilities necessary for us to produce everything by hand or by ourselves and find those alternate vendors. So the more you know all of the elements, the more you understand what is critical to your business or to your product operating well, the earlier you can start planning to figure out alternate routes. You also want to do some digging into what are your vulnerabilities for your business. So where do the risks lie so your company can protect itself? Now that might be a process that requires a lot of digging and potentially even leveraging some of the service-based businesses that I saw throw their businesses in the chat. You might want to leverage a consultant to really understand do that SWOT analysis. Where are you vulnerable? What do you need to have for your business to really operate? And what do you do if you can't get it? How do you plan for that? So that's an area where you may have to dive in deeper to understanding what it is your business truly needs. You also want to think about your supply base. So when you're really dependent on one source and it potentially is a medium risk or a high risk, that could be you have a factory that you really lean on, a supplier. I always think about this as businesses, we always have to think about our customer base and making sure that our whole business isn't too reliant on one customer. That's something I think about all the time as a service-based business. But as a product-based business, if you're making products, you have to think about it in both ways, not just making sure you're not too reliant on one customer, but also making sure you're not too reliant on one vendor. So you want to find more sources and locations when you're just getting started or you're earlier in your business, making sure you find multiple factories, that you have backup plans, and you get that process managed sooner rather than later so that you're not as vulnerable to the same risks. Also, it's easy to say, let's move away from China, but that's easier for some products than it is for others. So you also have to really understand, again, going back to what is it that your business really needs and what's critical, and what can, where else might you be able to find those items. There's also important to think about having some safety stock, right? So if you can't find different suppliers right away, how much extra stock do you hold in the meantime? And where is it along the value chain for you? So it's important for you to think about that as well. What do you share that you have that you can readily sell, and how do you make sure you have enough so that you're planning out and managing your business effectively? Because once everything goes, say you run out of products and you've maybe paid for workers to help manage in your shipping process or whatever jobs, roles you needed them to play, and then all your inventory runs out, what happens to your business, right? So you really want to be planning effectively so that you have stock, safety stock available. And then they also suggest that we take advantage of process innovations. So really looking at asking suppliers if they'll move with you, if you can bring some production back in-house, what can be automated. Are there other technologies that you can leverage that can streamline processes for you more effectively? So a lot of great thoughts there. Now, also, okay, I'm seeing a couple more. Some great things being dropped into the chat. Okay, so some of you are sharing your products and services that you would offer to help some of these product-based businesses. Great. And even if you move suppliers, you're still going to have high shipping costs and shortages of containers and trucks. Absolutely. Thank you for that point, John. Agree. Okay, so next slide, please. So do's also, and some of you said this as well, building strategic relationships is so critical in this space, right? So there's a couple of different strategic relationships that you could be thinking about. One, other business owners in this space. And that's why I'm really adamant about encouraging you all to connect with each other. And maybe it's not just in this room, but when if you are certified, if you're going to any of your NMSDC chats that they have on this topic or other topics that relate to your business, can you be working the virtual room? And the reason why is because in connecting with other business owners in your space, particularly if you don't have the same customers, there's a lot of potential opportunity. And I wonder if any of you have done anything like this. Can you share shipping costs, right? Can you purchase materials together to get more competitive pricing? Has anyone leveraged any of that? Are you sharing amongst each other like we're doing here? We saw a lot of great shares from Demond and from Katie as well. What are the best practices? What has been working for you? What are strategies that are useful? So that's why it's really important to develop those relationships to really manage in this time and in this era. Is anyone using relationships with other business owners in your space? Okay, Katie says we do a lot of importing and try to consolidate containers and ship full containers. Now, are you doing that with just your products or are you connecting with others? And Sammy says, yes, they're collaborating all day long. And then when it comes to building relationships with your clients and potential clients, you want to make sure that, they are really in tune with what's going on, that when you're saying, no, there are delays, right? That they're not just like, yeah, I heard about that, but really making sure that they're educated on this space. I'm going to pause because Katie just dropped a note. Just our product, but she is combining purchases across multiple internal buying groups. So thinking about what can be shipped together so that she's maximizing the cost when she is shipping. That's a great takeaway. So you want to make sure additionally that your clients are really educated on this space that you're sharing with them. That could be part of how you continue to build a relationship. Let them know what's going on. Talk openly about how it's affecting your business. This is really critical. So you want to be transparent about the volume that your business can actually handle, because that is probably the the quickest path to damaging relationships is having your clients sign up thinking that they can, work with you for a certain volume that they need for their business needs. And they think, oh, I found you, you are the one. They have a big event coming up, games at the stadium, and they thought you would be the one that could get them all the bobbleheads they need, but your shipping container is stuck too. You want to be really transparent about that. Also, you can leverage your certifications to partner with larger suppliers. So are any of you certified? The reason being is sometimes even larger suppliers are incentivized to work with minority-owned businesses as well. So you having an NMSDC, a WeBank, an NGLCC, or whichever certification can be a pathway for you to build relationships with larger suppliers. And this is where your clients, if they, if you have those strong relationships with you, they can even help you network with some of these larger suppliers that can leverage your business to be a subcontractor for them. So this is something that I also see a lot happening in this space. And I'm also seeing Demon with a great note. I would encourage everyone to use the best logistics company, not the cheapest, especially during this time. Yeah, a couple of you mentioned also raising your prices. So the reality is, prices are going up. Another stat that I was reading about recently was we've had the highest inflation rate in the last 10-year period. I think we're at 2.61% in inflation rate as an average for the last 10 years. So we're seeing really high inflation across the board. So that being said, prices are going up for everyone, and they're particularly going up if you are doing anything that involves products. So you also want to be really transparent about that. Are any of you, when you have those conversations and you're building the relationships with your client, letting them know how these things are affecting just not only your business, but also the finances of your business, and being more transparent about that. And if you do, I think one of you might have put it in here. I have to scroll it back up and find it, but I thought it was such a great comment. Really making sure, so your customers are going to care more about you being able to get it done and get it done well than about the cost often. So put those two options in front of them. Here is, it can get done, and it might take this kind of timeline because this logistics company isn't as reliable. It'll be a lot cheaper. But if we work with the best logistics company, to Demon's point, we are going to have to pay, we're going to have to pay up to get it done. And then Sammy also says, we raised our prices this quarter, and our clients don't mind at all because they appreciate the quality of the services we provide and our ability to be nimble. So this is really important because I think often as small businesses, and when we say small businesses, a lot of times we're defining that as under 15 million in revenue. So still considering it, many of you hopefully in this room are still in that space, then that means that sometimes we might think we can't raise the prices because we'll lose the client. But if you really do build those relationships and they value your products and services, it's a lot easier to have those kinds of conversations. And I also always I dropped on it a little bit, but do leverage your certifications. Next slide, please. There's a lot of reasons for this. Certifications are just important in general. There is a lot of demand for working with minority-owned businesses, but what I've also seen in my couple of months being certified that I greatly appreciate is just about every company that is working with NMSDC or the WeBanks of the world. They're also putting on seminars, they're putting on resources, they're giving out free resources to support small business owners in this time, right? Every week there's one from Target, from Citi, and it's a good opportunity to also hear from thought leaders, to also, as we talk about building relationships, to build those relationships with some of the procurement people who are the key decision makers, who are going to be able to support you if you do need to raise prices or if you do have to push back on deadlines, and help have those conversations. So your certifications not only help your business and can help you grow more business, but they can also be a great educational resource and tool for you to be able to make sure that you're building the critical relationships that you need to better advocate for yourself. And I'm seeing one more Oh, okay. No more comments in the chat. If anyone else, has leveraged their certifications to build relationships, would love to hear from you in the chat. Okay, and then that kind of goes back to one of my favorite things that I love to call out. Next slide, please. You do want to make sure you know the DNA of the decision-making process, right? So there are a couple different pieces, and these are all areas where you want to be real diligent about building relationships. So one, knowing who is the decision maker. I had a great conversation with a mentor once when I was trying to negotiate something and I couldn't get it done. And her feedback was really that sometimes as small business owners, particularly minority business owners, women business owners, we might be conditioned that we have to ask for so much permission and we're not looking at ourselves as CEOs the way we should be. And we have to build relationships with those who are making the decision because they're the ones who ultimately can approve or can block what it is we need. They can approve that budget, they can block that budget. So it's really critical to build those relationships. You also want to make sure you're building relationships with those who are negotiating. Sometimes the ones who you're negotiating with is not the one who's the actual decision owner of the process. That can be procurement teams. I'd like to call out just one more time that tomorrow at 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. Eastern, there's going to be a free conversation that I'm going to be on as well, joining, taking notes and listening with MLB's procurement teams. So you want to build those relationships because they can help you negotiate. They can give you the tools and the resources that you need to do so. And you also want to make sure you're finding advocates for yourself. So that is, when I'm in whether it's a virtual room, it's definitely a lot harder to network. It might be a virtual room. If you have opportunities to go in person as well, this is really critical. I had one situation, for example, where I was working, pitching to a company, and they totally misread our services and what we offer, and really misread the scale of our business. And they were trying to have me do something that would have been really nominal and not made a difference for us at all. Cool opportunity, but not an opportunity that my business needs at this stage. And instead, I saw an opportunity to be in strategic alignment with something they were doing. Went to this networking event, actually met someone from the company and told her just about my vision. And in doing that, she sent an email and it changed the whole course of the conversation from a shift of something that could have been a couple $1,000s to a six-figure opportunity, right? So it's important that we're building the relationships with folks who can sponsor us and be advocates for us in this process. I'm gonna read just two more comments and then move on. So, okay, so this is really interesting. This is John's take, only a small percentage of women, LGBT, and other minority-owned companies are certified due to the difficulties it takes to fill out the application and complete the entire audit process. We can assist them and have a 99.6% rate. So John is saying he is your guy. The certification process is hard. Agreed. And that is why it took me nearly 6 years to do it. It is so challenging. Actually, I leveraged a consultant. I did not do it alone. And again, going back to advocates, guess what? I didn't pay for the consultant. One of my clients did because it was so critical for them to work with certified businesses. They actually covered the whole process. So now I am coming up on almost 3 certifications because of that. Really like to highlight again, if there's something that your business needs, don't discount that your procurement teams, those folks who are working at your large companies, often want to help your business. So the more you build the relationship, the more you gain their trust, the more opportunities there are for your business to grow. And there's a couple folks who are sharing their certifications in the chat. Also, a couple more folks dropping their services. So you want to take a second and read about their services. We're coming to the tail end. Next slide, please. But don't you worry, we'll be back at 3 p.m. Another don't, and again, I mentioned this is different for every business, but you want to make sure that you're not relying on China as a sole strategy. And I'm saying this also because we're seeing even the largest companies are looking at making more investment. And so you want to follow the investments that large companies in your industry are making and see if you can cash in on some of the investments that they're making. So for example, we're seeing Apple suppliers announce that they're planning to invest $1 billion in India as a way to try to shift some of their production away from China. That might be an area to explore. You want to keep an eye on where are large companies making investments to try to build up production in other areas. Hasbro was another one. Hasbro is the world's largest publicly traded toy maker, and they've for the longest been in China and have been hoping. They've been very public about saying they're hoping to have only 50% of production coming from China. They're trying to shift away, finding new plants in Vietnam and India. Nintendo is also trying to move some of its video game console production to Southeast Asia away from China. So there's a lot of investment that is happening in other countries. If any of the products that you're making align in these industries, you want to make sure you're following. What industry do you fall in, and where are the larger companies making investments, and can you cash in on that? Next slide, please. Okay, yes, I'm seeing great networking happening in the chat, and it's making me so happy. We get limited opportunities in a virtual world to connect with each other, and it really just comes from being bold and sharing your story. So I love that some of you all are doing that. Speaking opportunities happening in the chat. People looking at speakers for conferences. So this is great, great stuff. Okay, and then the next thing is, a shortcut, and I think we heard this highlighted really well by some of the fellow business owners in the room. Katie and Damon hit on this. One shortcut is data is key to forecasting appropriately. And it's really hard, it's very hard to do. We're seeing even across the board, small businesses are struggling with this. What is the right approach? But you definitely cannot even begin to forecast if you don't have data in place. Now, I don't know what size businesses you all have. It runs across the board. Katie and Zeman, I would love for you if you can drop in the chat what you're using, what systems have you built your own internal systems, what other systems are you using to help you with forecasting and for you to understand patterns in shipping from your customers. I'm sure you all are using data. If you're a smaller business and you're not at the stage where you're supplying for the MLBs of the world yet, even your Shopify has great insights. Your Google Analytics, your Facebook Pixel has great insights. So you really want to make sure that as you're building your business, and this goes across the board for product-based businesses, for service-based businesses, that you're beginning to put in systems in place as your business scales to collect data from your customers so that you can forecast appropriately as best as you can. I love that story from Damon where he talked about how he in 2019 had invested in a lot in inventory, and that's what helped him really survive through the pandemic. So sometimes it's also making smart bets. And Katie is sharing she uses HubSpot and internal software for sales. She developed her own. Okay, data and reporting. Awesome. And anyone else can drop in what data tools you're using, because this really boils down to being one of the keys of making sure you're collecting. Now, we're very much at the tail. Okay, a couple more. Salesforce Lite, Multisoft, and ShipStation. So again, depending on what kind of businesses you have and how you're operating, you may want to check out some of these resources. They can be incredibly helpful to you in this process. Now, SEMrush for website health and tracking, love it. Keep all of the resources coming in the chat. We're a community. We help each other grow our businesses. Now, the last things I would call out to you, we talked about the importance of certifications. Again, come back tomorrow, or come back today, rather, at 3 p.m. We're also going to be talking about building relationships in more depth in a virtual world. Next slide, please. But just as you're getting certified, one thing that is important to know is a lot of these large companies are investing as well. So Justin shared at the beginning that MLB has been diligent about supporting diverse-owned businesses. That's part of why they throw on free programs like this. Next slide, please. So you want to certify your business, and then you want to make sure you sign up for their supplier diversity program. A lot of companies, I can name a bunch, Google, Target, Major League Baseball, I'll think of more. A lot of them have non-invitation required supplier diversity programs. And what's important about this is if you share your capabilities, and then you begin to network. And when someone is looking for a business that does what you do and you're already in the supplier diversity system, it can also quicken the opportunity and make them want to choose you versus another vendor. So just making sure your information is up in there. It's completely free, limited information required from you. One more shortcut that I did forget to mention that's been really critical, and this has not affected I don't have a product-based business. I have a service-based business, and this has even helped me in planning and preparing how to run my business. You can also have very candid conversations. So we talk about raising prices. Also, let's talk about payment terms with our big clients that we're working with, because often there are workarounds they can do. So some large companies have shortened payment windows if you are a diverse supplier. Some will even go as far as paying partial payment up front and paying the remainder upon fulfillment. So you also really want to dive in. Don't think that standard terms apply to you. These are some of the ways that companies are leaning in to try to help small business owners win in this process. Okay, so let's just talk about next steps. We have just a couple minutes left, and I want to read through comments and see if anyone has any questions before we hop off. So the next steps, next slide. We do want to make sure you review the MLB Supplier Diversity Portal and sign up. If you're already in the portal, go ahead and drop it in the chat. Say, yes, I'm in the portal, it's free. You want to make sure, we're talking about networking. Who doesn't want Major League Baseball as a client? I know I definitely do. So you want to make sure you join the procurement session tomorrow, December 8th. I'll drop the link in one more time at 9 a.m. What is the link? I will find the link for you as well. It is just MLB Supplier Diversity on Google. Let me pull it up for you as well and drop it in the chat, or if Vivian has it handy. Here it is. I found it already. And then you want to make sure you come back at 3 p.m. today, and let's all share best practices on how we've built really compelling relationships. We talked about that DNA. How do we build those relationships with them, get the decision makers to make the decisions that favor our businesses, as well as get our advocates to help us get in the door and make sure we're negotiating well. So there's a lot more to talk about today. I hope to see you back. You have an hour break, but you also want to make sure you get certified to build more business with large companies. And the last thing I would say is I'd leave it to you. What else? What else do we need to be doing to grow our businesses to make sure that our doors stay open as we are still persevering through this pandemic? Anyone have any ideas? I am looking through the chat. Okay, I'm seeing more of you networking. I love this. Please keep dropping in the chat. And I'm seeing a question. Okay. And this is Douglas. I love this question. For unique companies like ours, baseball scoring software, how can we get the diversity team to advocate for us to use MLB teams and MLB management? Now, this goes back to exactly what I'm saying, building relationships. Sometimes when you have a unique business, the opportunity isn't immediately clear, but as you build the relationships, the opportunities can reveal themselves. So if I were you, I don't know what that opportunity is right now, but if I were you, what I would do is go to that procurement session, and just like some of you all have been doing in the chat, really sharing your capabilities, sharing the ways you've excelled, sharing your wins. I would be sharing those same stats, sharing the volume you can handle, all of that, and let the procurement team see it. Network, follow up with them, build those relationships, let it happen, and then you can build some advocates that can help you get in the door. Any other thoughts on that? I don't know if Vivian or Felicia might want to weigh in, but I think that's probably my best piece of advice. Save chat, bottom right. Absolutely. We also recorded, so we will make sure that the recording goes out. But I just want to take a second to thank everyone for being here. It's really important, again, that you all are sharing. We're sharing with each other. We're making ourselves aware on the latest research. We're following the news. I always say, and I'll leave you with this, as a CEO, sometimes we wear the hats of being a chief everything officer. And that doesn't mean we have to do everything. We should never be doing everything, but it does mean that we have to have that base level knowledge of everything that's going on in the ecosystem that affects us. So that being said, thank you so much. Yes, delegate, and hope to see you back at 3 p.m. See you, everyone.